This is Amber Parrott from Morgan James Publishing, and today I have the privilege of speaking with Annette Valentine, the author of Down to the Potter's House. Annette, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, it's my privilege. I've been excited to talk to you, Amber. Thanks.
Absolutely. I've been excited as well. So I want to dive in and ask you a couple things about your book. So first of all, can you give us an overview of Down to the Potter's House?
Sure. To the Potter's House is a historic novel, historic and inspirational. It's based on Gracie Maxwell. Gracie is a lively 15-year-old, and it takes her to her homestead in rural Kentucky, Elkton, Todd County, Kentucky, in the 1920s. And it's very heated, very overarching themes of immorality. And it portrays a historical view of mores in the 1920s, which are very different from today, of course. And it's a story of a young girl finding her path in life, and it's based on my mother. And incidentally, it's a second in a trilogy. The first was Eastbound from Flagstaff, and I have a copy of Eastbound from Flagstaff, which was out last year. And of course, Down to the Potter's House now is launching on November the 3rd. So this one is loosely based on my mother, but through her life as a young woman, just finding what her soul was all about, who she was going to become as a woman, and the influence that she would have on many, many people as a teacher and as a mother, and just as a very wonderful person. So fiction, but yes, loosely based on my mother and her father, the influence that he had because of his beliefs.
Sure.
And the two patriarchal influences that go from her mother and her father, or excuse me, well, patriarchal, yes, her father compared to Simon Hagan's father in Eastbound from Flagstaff. So it really weaves a tale of two fathers and how their influences are so distinctly different.
Wow.
And the fallout from those two influences. So both stories loosely based on my father first in Eastbound from Flagstaff and my mother in Down to the Potter's House.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a kind of compare and contrast thing going on with the different generations and the different impacts. So that sounds very interesting. I like it.
That's absolutely it. It is comparing and contrasting, and you really see how important foundational strengths are in both books.
Yeah, great. So you touched a little bit on your mother being the inspiration for Down to the Potter's House. Can you talk a little bit more about how she, as a real person, inspired you to create this character and how the similarities and differences?
Oh, great question. Well, actually, the inspiration for the book came from a statement that she made on her deathbed, Amber. Just not a secret so much, but just something that she protected in her life until she was 91 years old. And on her deathbed, just made a statement that she wanted us as a family to know these aspects of her life, and for her to have carried such a deep and touching aspect of her life, and wanted us to know that as she left this life and entered another, just what her influence would be came from that statement that she made. And I tucked that away. It was not something I said, oh, this is a book.
Sure.
Absolutely not. It was just something that I sort of tucked away to uncover years later and say, this really ties into who we are as people and how a truth can make a tremendous impact on our lives, and whether or not we find out it's actually true, or if it's something that's false, it could have influenced our lives from either way, whether it's true or false. And so this, and it would be it would be a spoiler for me to say what the statement was,
Sure.
what she revealed in that moment, but it was something that really impacted me and my family. And that's when I would begin to think, I need to tell this story. And then it's amazing how it intertwined with the story of Simon Hagen and Eastbound, how their stories were similar but different. But the inspiration for Eastbound from Flagstaff came from something my father had done. The inspiration for Down to the Potter's House came from that one 7-word statement by my mother when she was 91 years old.
Wow, what a legacy. Wow. And that I love that you kept it a secret because you don't want to spoil it. That I'm sure the viewers at home are happy to grab a copy to find out what that statement was. Wow. So you talked a little bit about the main character, Gracie Maxwell. What type of research was involved in the saga of that character?
Oh, a lot of research. Secondary character was her father, Senator Maxwell, and he was a thoroughbred horse breeder. He was a senator, horse breeder. Both of those required a lot of research to find out about Kentucky Derby in the 1920s, which it was in existence, but just thoroughbreds in general. A lot about horses, transportation. The book goes into the 1930s, and of course, airplanes were in existence then, but she travels across the world. So a lot of research into, well, what would that entail? What would that really be about? So a lot about transportation, trains, airplanes.
Yeah.
Fashion. Gracie Maxwell was a very fashion conscious person. She was kind of an elite person in this rural place in Kentucky. Her father was not only senator but gentleman farmer, and so she had some affluence. So she was very much into fashion, but that was an aspect of her life that didn't dominate. I mean, she was a very genuine person, and so fashion was a very colorful part of her existence. So I had to do a lot of research on fashion. Just the mores of the time, different from today. Social mores.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun, honestly, and a lot of
It was a lot of fun. I love the research part of writing. It is sometimes a distraction, but a very fun distraction. And yeah, there are a lot of details that you would think maybe you wouldn't have to research, but my brother actually caught me on one. Was a liniment for horses, and he said, that wasn't even, actually it was more than a liniment, but something he caught me on. It's like, oh gosh, that was one little detail I forgot to actually research. But it's amazing how much research is involved.
Yeah.
But it's such a fun part of it, and it's can be a distraction, but it's a very nice distraction.
Yeah, I'm sure those various rabbit holes you can go down are probably a lot of fun and can take you away from the writing, but the precision of making sure that those details are correct, I know, is so huge, and making sure that the reader stays immersed in that world. So thank you for taking the time.
Well, I think you're right. It can derail you if you're reading something and gosh, that couldn't have been true.
Right.
Yeah, it's not fun to stumble on those, but you know, we all deserve grace if
Sure.
something like that happens. But yeah, you do want to do your homework and go to the extent to find out what's true and what would have been authentic for the era.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Annette. Before we wrap up, I do want to ask, how can viewers at home connect with you?
Well, my website, Annette H. Valentine, have to put that H in there, AnnetteHValentine.com. Instagram is Annette H. Valentine author. So those two are probably the main social media that you can find me on. And I would love for you to go there and visit my website.
Great. Thank you so much, Annette, and congratulations on the release of Down to the Potter's House. Viewers at home, be sure to grab a copy of both Down to the Potter's House and Eastbound from Flagstaff, wherever books are sold.
Amber, thank you. It's a pleasure seeing you again.
You too.